Welcome back to the channel, everybody. How you doing? How you doing? Today, we are going to talk about the Shibuya Arc. I'm actually pretty excited. I can finally say I am past the shell throughout the history of my channel. So I read Jujutsu Kaisen. I've been really liking JJK. I watched the show, really loved it, and I was like, all right, let's read the manga. Everyone talks about how the manga kind of falls off after the Shibuya Arc, so I need to see why. Today, we're talking about Shibuya Arc, and I'm going to argue that for shonen arcs, this is great. This is arguably one of the best shonen new gen shonen arcs. That's how I would argue it. It's really good. If I could think of one that could probably match it, is probably the train arc from Demon Slayer, or the arc that's after Demon Slayer. I can't remember, after the train arc for Demon Slayer. I can't remember what it's called. It's like the district arc or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head. If you guys know what I'm talking about, please comment down below. It's with the brother-sister demons. I like this arc a lot, but we're gonna go into talking about the positives of this, and then we're gonna go into talking about the negatives of this. And then I'm gonna give you my thoughts about Jujutsu Kaisen currently, and then we'll proceed after that of what I prefer, if I like the show or do I like the manga more. First off, for the positives, I want to talk about this. JJK. Gigi does a great job at just giving you that style. The style of JJK is just cool. It's like when you go to school and you see that guy off the corner, and he's just like looks cool, and he's just like a cool dude, and you're like, I want to hang out with this guy because he's just cool. That's JJK. You can really see it in this arc. I also think the story of this arc is really good because it's always been seeded out from the very beginning. Even when you first get to volume 0 with Utah, it starts off just little breadcrumbs that October 31st, like Halloween night, it's about to get wild in Shibuya, and it really does get pretty wild. I'm not gonna lie, I really like this arc. I think the show, for fight wise, clearly in the fights for anime versus just the manga, the anime is usually gonna just be better. That's just how I always viewed it. But with this, it's just a really fun, good arc. Every character has really cool moments in it that I really appreciate reading, that I actually didn't catch the first time when I was watching the show. Now, I haven't done a rewatch, I only watched the season 2 just once through, but this does a really good job at just showing you how good these character moments are in this show, and I really appreciate it. I can't sit there and say it's bad, or anything, because I can't say that about these character moments in this show. One of my favorites in this that I think the show did a way better job with, and I think a lot of people can agree because it floored me, the 2 episodes that we got to see, is in Shibuya, we got to see Sukuna with 15 fingers. Now, out of context, when they're like, oh yeah, we gave Yuji 10 fingers, like people are gonna be like, what? To me, when I got to witness that on screen, when Sukuna shows up and he is whooping some booty with Jogo, and then he fights the Shinigami from Fushiguro. So when you got to see those 2 episodes, I was mind blown. And then I learned that Mappa couldn't even like finish the actual animation because they're so overworked. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good, even with 50% of the animations done. Anyways, so I was pretty hyped about reading that in the manga, and it's only a chapter each of them, so I was like, all right, it kind of makes sense. Like I didn't expect to go so deep about it, but I was really hyped. That made me like love Sukuna, and I'm actually excited to see him in these next couple arcs that I'm reading. I hope I get to see more of it. And in this one, you get to learn a lot more about Gojo getting trapped in like the prison realm from Gito. Now Gito takes the top of his head off, and it's actually someone controlling him, because I always questioned that when I was reading this. Well, when I watched them, I was like, oh, does Gojo actually kill Gito in the movie? And he actually does. And that's why you get his reaction in this, that he's like, oh my gosh, like he freaks out. So that was deep. There's just a lot of layers in this arc that you don't really expect to watch. So then you get Fushiguro, Tuji Fushiguro fighting Toji, his father, in a way, which is just so dope. And how it ends, it's just a really cool thing. And then you get, I think, arguably my favorite fight scene in actually this whole arc, besides like Sukuna's was just cinematically, it was cool, especially in the show, but in the manga, if I had to pick who I thought had the best fight, I actually think Choso versus Yuji was my favorite fight out of all of them. That fight was so good, especially when they were fighting in the bathroom and you had the sprinklers going. It was just really good. And I think JJK is one of the few anime slash mangas that executes fighting for story. There's a lot of anime or manga that do a lot of like story while they do fighting, and it doesn't really do the greatest job, but I think JJK actually found that formula that does such a good job that I actually could sit back and be like, this is really good, and I really enjoy that element of JJK. So now we're going to talk about the bad, the negative. The biggest negative I have about this is I feel like the pacing in JJK is so fast that I think that's why Shibuya is so good, because yes, there's a lot of throwing hands in this arc, and I think it's great, but there's a lot of moments that it just feels like characters need to breathe for a moment, and you don't really get that. It feels like every time a character is fighting, you get a few second breather, and then boom, they're right back to fighting again. It's tough, because like I said, it was a positive to see that, like, the way that they do character moments, character development is through fighting, but it's also like a negative to me, because I like those slower moments in my stories, and it's really, really tough to read this, and then it kind of, because there's moments where my brain just shuts off, and I'm just like, that, because the show, I mean, because the manga is just so fast, or you kind of just don't really think about it when the characters are fighting, and I don't really appreciate it as much as I do. Now, with that being said, I still really like this arc. I think this is arguably one of the best shonen arcs currently. And I'm not sitting there saying like, oh, I'm a big JJK fan. Like, I love Jujutsu Kaisen, I do. I think there's a lot of really good new gen anime out there, manga out there. But yeah, JJK is just like the top dog right now, and you can't do anything about it. But I will say though, those elements of the negative, that's the only negative I have. Storyline, I think this is a great arc. You have a lot of questions because, like I said, the first couple bit, especially season 1, which is the first arc, and I don't know what to call it, because there's like small arcs of like 3 chapter arcs, and then it gets to, that's it essentially, and then you get to the Gojo's past arc, which is great. But that first chunk, I would like to say, I think it's the first like 8 volumes, is nice because all of them are like payoffs for Shibuya, if that makes sense. There's a lot of things that are happening through this. Previous things are going, and then you get to Shibuya, and you're like, wow, these all are such a good payoff for the show or manga that I really actually appreciate it, and I just didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did. Now, when I'm reading all this, I'm wondering now, I'm like, all right, what is going to happen? Like, there's a lot of things that the end of Shibuya hints towards what's going to happen, and it ends with Yuta looking to kill Yuji and Gojo and a couple of other characters, and I was like, wow, this is gonna be dope. So now I'm like, what is going to happen? I know I've been kind of spoiled, not really, I just know that 2 characters are going to be fighting against each other, and it was hinted at the beginning of the show. Anyways, we all know Gojo and Sukuna are gonna fight, but I wonder if I'm gonna be actually reading it finally, or will I still have to wait for it to come out physically. So I'm pretty excited about it. But if I had to give this arc a rating, I'd probably give it like a 9 out of 10. I think this was a great arc. I don't know when. I would like to do a top 10 favorite manga series. I might do that at the end of the year. Who knows? We'll find out. But I really did like this. I think a 9 out of 10 is up there. I don't know if it's my favorite arc. I don't know if it's one of my favorite arcs of all time, but arguably this is a great arc, and I had a blast reading it. If you guys like fast-paced manga, JJK is it. I think that's why it's so popular, because the majority of people just love these fast arcs of how fast and just throwing hands it is. That's all it is. It's just E for everyone. That's what these hands are for. If you guys made it to the end of the video, I do appreciate it. Let me know down below what you guys think about JJK. What other anime do you think has arguably one of those arcs that are just like so good that you're like, oh yeah, this is a peak arc? I'd love to know down below, of course. And of course, make sure you guys stay safe, stay humble, and tell someone you love them. I'll see you guys in the next video. Stay weird.